when you're new to a profession, when you're just learning it, there are some of this what you might consider tedious drudgery that's best left for bots. Is how you kind of get your reps in. It's how you build some muscle memory. So if you've done SEO headlines for a couple of years, you get a good sense of what's good and what isn't. You'll pay attention to your structure, and you'll have a good eye for what makes a good SEO headline for the rest of your career.
Mm.
Um, will that go away once we start outsourcing that to bots most of the time?
Hey there, tech enthusiasts. Welcome to Tech Time with Sweet Tea, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of technology and how it can either serve you or, well, not serve you. Here is your host, Sweet Tea, and he's on a mission to help you harness the power of tech in your life. Join him as he chats with people about their tech journeys. From the latest gadgets to digital dilemmas, we'll explore it all. So grab your favorite device, hit that play button, and let's keep it real in the world of tech. Tech Time with Sweet Tea is here to help you stay plugged in and empowered. Let's get started.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Keeping It Real Tech Time with Sweet Tea, and I'm here talking with Pete. Just get restarted. Introduce yourself real quick. Thanks for coming on, talking a little about AI, evolution of SEO, and content creation. A little
Awesome.
about
Yeah.
what do you do, and a little about yourself to start.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Tommy. My name is Pete Pachal. I run a company called the Media Copilot. It's also a newsletter. That's what I first launched as. So basically, I cover the intersection of AI and media, covering how it's changing journalism, how it's changing communications and PR, and as well as marketing to some extent, and really just kind of trying to zero in on sort of the big picture issues, like how the whole media ecosystem's changing and how copyright and legal concerns are sort of shaping things, as well as sort of the micro level, like the ground level where people are actually using these tools and what are they using them for, and what are some of the implications of that, whether it's turbocharging productivity or if it's eliminating jobs or if it's getting people to over rely on the technology and that sort of thing. Sort of thinking about all of that and trying to pass on what I know through the newsletter and through classes that I teach to creative teams. So I can teach creative teams how to use AI on in their day to day work, and I consult with a few companies too.
Thanks again. And one thing I just mentioned there, and a couple things to unpack. But one thing that people are thinking about, and I'm hearing things from one side, things from another. Should people be jumping off the bridge? Say like they're jumping to conclusions about what AI is going to be doing. Is it going to be replacing them, or is there a middle ground, or what should we worried about overall, and what things can? I know this is a question to unpack, but
Yeah,
what? Yeah, take that as you will, and
yeah. So no one should jump off a bridge. So just to be clear, that's probably a bad idea. No, so the thing about AI is there's a misconception that it's just here to sort of eliminate jobs. While that's true to some extent, I'm not going to say that stand here and tell you that the application of AI to any industry means all the jobs will be preserved. That's not true in a lot of ways. It's also not out to outright replace a human with a box. What happens is that the more you apply to AI, the more you apply AI to certain professions or tasks, the more you can realize you can sort of outsource part of what you were using for human decision making, right? So, example in media, easy one is SEO headlines, right? So everyone who creates content is like, how do I get my stuff on the internet? You got to optimize for SEO. You got to get keywords. You got to get a good headline that represents the thing you put out there, but also something Google likes. And everybody, spends a little bit of time doing SEO headlines, especially in the pre AI era. And you would, whatever it is, a few minutes, maybe 5 minutes, maybe longer if you're, really pay attention to it. And especially if you pay attention to all the aspects of SEO, whether it's headlines, keywords, the URL itself, all those things you got to pay attention to. and it takes time. And then, but you need a certain amount of like cognitive bandwidth, to use a really sort of weird technical term that's probably more common now with AI. The thing is, AI can do that pretty much as good as a human. In fact, even before AI, we were looking to algorithms and data to guide that anyway. So the doing an SEO headline, essentially like dragging and dropping your content and saying, "Hey, give me what the SEO content is, give me what the keyword should be, what the URL should be." That's a great, I think, application of AI, and it's going to take the time that you would have spent doing that and give it back to you for every piece of content that you put out there. So, zooming out on like an organization that had a certain amount of people doing that, and now they're not, they've outsourced it to bots. That means they're doing more with less. It means you might not have to hire an SEO person. Now that's not, or like maybe a junior level one, because SEO is still important. You need strategy around it, and only humans. I wouldn't necessarily only humans, but humans um, are doing that. But the actual sort of nuts and bolts of SEO, that's something that is sort of getting distributed now to bots. So that's sort of how it manifests at an organizational level. Now, if you're like a junior level SEO employee and you're kind of doing this kind of work, yeah, I mean, some of that's, if that's your only job, then good chunks of that are going to get automated away. But there's so much more you can do in SEO, and it's more, most of those jobs ends up being analyst roles anyway, and you sort of interpret what the data tells you or what the bots are doing and what the audience is responding to. And you still need a certain amount of human input and interpretation on that kind of role. But the sort of ground level stuff, and this, obviously it's one example, this is applicable to a wide array of tasks and content, is starting to get a little bit more automated. And it's kind of like figuring out which of those tasks, that sort of low level human cognition that you can sort of remove, redefines roles a bit by bit. And then over time, your role just isn't just sort of checking the AI, although some of that's happening too. They just get redefined and project out into the future. And it looks like most organizations, if they stay at their same level, essentially the level of output that they're doing, will look leaner. Of course, there's another way to do that equation, which is that, okay, maybe they're not leaner in the sense that fewer people, maybe they have the same people, but the output increases, and maybe they're even doing new things with AI. And so tapping into some of the possibilities with content and what have you that AI opens up. So that's kind of what it is. And so I don't think people should fear existentially what AI represents. It's really just a technology. It's moving faster than previous technologies that were applicable to content and media. But it is sort of like um, a similar trajectory, in the same way that when we moved more online and had less print, there's probably less jobs at actual physical printers, right? There's probably fewer of those too. But that wasn't like a thing that suddenly happened overnight. It was just sort of a natural evolution of the industry.
Yeah, in order, and my opening question to the I mentioned to jump off the bridge. People are jumping to conclusions. I want to get away from that, and I want to talk about the pitfalls, but to get away from the talk about opportunities and pitfalls. What opportunities might AI present for smaller newsrooms or independent journalists or businesses in general? Like, what opportunities in terms of resource efficiency?
Oh, so many. So I'm kind of a solopreneur. I have a little help with some freelancing and other things, but mostly it's me doing articles for the newsletter. And what that means is I have to leverage AI to do various things. So I mentioned SEO. I obviously use it for that. Social copy. That's another one. Imagery. So, again, I don't, I'm not of the scale where Getty would even pay attention to me in terms of images. And there's a lot of free stock photos out there, but, finding something that represents AI, it's often good to use AI, some of these image generators. Now, you can get into the ethics of that a little bit if you like, but all of those things are good examples of sort of punching above your weight, being able to do more with what sort of resources that you might have, and the ultimate resource is time. Like where I spend my time as a entrepreneur is the most crucial decision I make every day. Like what am I upgrading my operations? Am I writing content? Am I trying to build some relationships with clients, etc.? There's all, just doing the books. All of these things take time. And the more I can outsource that to AI reliably, the more productive I'm going to be. So for smaller newsrooms, I think it's a lot of that. The various things I listed, certainly like what you want to preserve is the storytelling, the human component of what you're doing. So when I look at a journalistic operation, I look at story production, starting at that sort of reporter level, I divide it into sort of three sections. There's the story idea, sort of the generation of news. It could be breaking news. It could be just something, you're summarizing from a local government thing. It could be anything, right? Um, and then there's the actual writing of it. Once you have all that material, you've got your interviews, you've got your research, you've got your background, previous stories. You put all that together, you create a story. And then at the other end of the pipeline is the distribution, the publishing, the editing. And what I find with AI is that AI is very useful at the beginning and at the end, and it gets really dicey in the middle because the middle is all, obviously where you want your human attention the most. You want humans telling stories for other humans. Now, it's not to say you can't ever have AI write a story or contribute to a story, though it's risky. And we've seen a lot of problems with that, with people sort of rushing out with into that area without fully vetting the process. And then in the final part, though, like I mentioned, SEO and social copy, I mean, even editing and proofreading, those are some good jobs for an AI. Also, reformatting. So, what this is a big thing. This will essentially repackage the content for other platforms. So, you have social media, you have networks like TikTok. Most places, video is a very expensive thing to do professionally. Now with AI, and I'm not even talking about sort of text to video generators, that's a whole other thing. But with AI applied to your editing process and applied to some of these tools, like these clipping tools that can put automatic captions, that can essentially scan an article and create a video for you, and even in a generative way, sometimes put in B-roll for the things you're talking about. Suddenly, you can have a TikTok channel, even though you're a one-man show. Like you can start doing things like that. And you can even there's like services now, if you have any kind of media operation, you can start very easily integrating things like stock reports and weather reports. All that stuff is kind of like you can sort of get it off the shelf almost. And then in a there's services that'll offer your own branding. You can pick your own avatars to report the stuff, assuming it's a video medium. And you can do it very, very cheaply, much more cheaply than if you were to, do all that research, hire the people, shoot the footage, and do it all yourself. You can just, it's essentially automating out, sections of your newscast or your basically your content package that might not be the core of it, but your readers will find utility in, and just lets you add that sort of layer of convenience so they don't have to go to all these other platforms to get that same information. They can get it right from you.
Now, I'm big on the team and mentioned that you doing things cheaply, and again, productivity. When things about AI comes to mind, productivity, cheap labor, and when you're getting to like your scale season of a business, is I'm getting to the roles of a human going back into the SEO section, content value. What role will human intuition? You kind of mentioned it a little bit, but let's dive deeper into the creativity play and the input of the human into AI. What role will the creative play in the creative content alongside the tools?
Yeah. So where does the human fit into sort of all of this AI stuff going around over the edges? Well, I think the thing you need to ask yourself, whatever you're a publication, you're an individual, is like, what are you bringing to the table? Like, what is your unique value that you're bringing to what you're doing? And this is honestly where I think um, AI is a very healthy thing to happen to journalism right now, because now on a I guess quite not quite talent isn't quite the right word, but humans are kind of competing with bots for various tasks, and we should be rooting for the bots to win on a lot of them, because I think what that's going to do is excise a lot of what passed for journalism over the past 15 years or so, because it's better done by bots. Great example, aggregation. So aggregation is when some news is broken or written about somewhere else. You take it, and summarize it, give the main takeaways, and provide a link back to the original source. And in the days of BuzzFeed, when that was like the hottest thing on the internet, you throw in a hot take, and that sort of became blogging in for sort of legit blogging for a lot of websites. I know that sort of practice very well. I did it and managed a lot of people who did it at Mashable, for example, which cut its teeth on this kind of content, this very shareable kind of stuff. Will some of that survive the AI era? Sure. If you have really spicy takes, if you're a really good writer, you're really clever, there's always going to be a bit of a demand for that. But for the more, by and large, if that was mostly what you were doing, just the sort of aggregation, that job's better done by bots. I would say upwards of 90% of the time. And so what that does, it's going to force you as a content creator, as a reporter, as a journalist to look at what you're doing and really honestly say, well, what am I doing here? What value am I bringing to this story that everybody's written up? And I think what you're going to find is that not necessarily that you won't see scrums. I mean, we're still going to see people all sort of covering the big stories. Certainly in AI, whenever OpenAI does anything, there's a bunch of stories about it. It's leaning into your take, but your take for your people and the people that read your stuff. So that's a that's a good example of that sort of self reflection. I think that journalists can benefit from now and in the wake of AI, because it's going to essentially force people to have that connection with their audiences. Because if you don't have that, you're basically competing with a bot now that can probably summarize the news that's happened, or analyze the news that's happened better than you. So, did you want to ask me about plagiarism? I see a question in the chat here.
So I want to get to the three, and then I have some bonus that I can wrap up too. But I want to
Sure.
talk about pitfalls real briefly. We're playing the heavily what potentials of pitfalls overall. We're playing heavily on AI for news reporting, how to get mitigated.
Yeah. So, if you rely heavily on AI, presumably not for writing, but if you're relying it on, say, for aggregation, if you're relying on for, say, all the sort of micro tasks that I've kind of been talking about, and more even, um, it sort of begs the question: what are the interns doing? And so, when you're new to a profession, when you're just learning it, there are some of this what you might consider tedious drudgery that's best left for bots. Is how you kind of get your reps in. It's how you build some muscle memory. So if you've done SEO headlines for a couple of years, you get a good sense of what's good and what isn't. You'll pay attention to your structure, and you'll have a good eye for what makes a good SEO headline for the rest of your career.
Mm.
Um, Will that go away once we start outsourcing that to bots most of the time? Maybe. Um, and is that bad? Probably, if SEO continues to matter in this way. Or maybe it's not so much, because the thing is, there's a lot of skills that I probably knew. I'm old enough to have used typewriters, and there's the sort of tape that is like liquid paper that you can use to erase things you type. I haven't used that in like 30 plus years. That's a skill I no longer have. I don't think that matters. Is this the same? I don't know if it quite is, because again, we're talking more about human cognitive tasks. So to some extent, I think there's not too much to worry about, and to a little extent, I think there is a bit of like muscle memory in your mind that's going to atrophy if you don't work it. And I think there's also organizational muscle memory and muscle building that I think every organization has to think about before they start outsourcing everything to AI. And I think as an organization, you really need to think about disciplined use of AI and how it's like, okay, maybe we could use AI for this set of tasks, but maybe it's during an internship. Internships at newsrooms typically last a number of months, usually like 2 or 3 months. Maybe you have a rule that interns still need to do some of that AI esque tasks, maybe not all of them, but some of them, so that they can build up a little bit of that muscle memory before you start giving them stories to do and higher level work. Because you got to think about that pipeline: how do interns become junior employees, how do junior employees become senior employees, and then become management. And if you are cutting off the pipeline at the bottom there, you're going to have a very serious long-term problem. The media ecosystem itself is evolving. So SEO, I've talked about SEO a lot. SEO matters a lot today. It's important. Um, the more we move into the future, the more people get their information from chatbots, maybe even voice chatbots like ChatGPT's new advanced voice mode, which is pretty impressive. You can talk to it, but not just that, you can interrupt it. You can have very natural conversations, and they've just released an API so others can build that kind of experience into their own apps. The more we start doing just that and just asking these assistants and agents essentially what's going on, what's the news, what's the information I need. Maybe SEO, at least the current version of it, kind of goes away and it gets replaced with something else. And I've sort of written about this too, like what is SEO for chatbots? That's a brand new field that no one really knows because no one really quite knows how these chatbots work. They tend to give different answers for the same query often.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yes.
it's a whole new frontier of like getting your thoughts and your content discoverable.
Yes, I saw that when you go to Google now and you type in a question, and what you don't see now when you type it in is the AI response on Google, and then you scroll down, and most people aren't scrolling down to see the actual hits anymore.
Yeah, yeah, it's a thing. The AI summaries are, I don't characterize them as good or bad. It's just they remove friction, and tech is all about removing friction. So if you
Mhm.
think about, you did a Google search, and it doesn't matter what it is. What's the best air freshener or robot vacuum? AI will just give you the answer. Like it'll say, "Oh, here's the top three recommended by the Wirecutter," or like I've compared the Wirecutter with 10 other sites and averaged the top three. Um, you might go, I'll do a tiny bit more research, but certainly not as much as you did in the Google era and fewer clicks. That has a lot of implications. One, obviously, you remove friction, but you're also very trusting of what the AI has done and
Mhm.
without really knowing what it's doing. Now, it's not like we have a whole lot of insight into what Google's doing, but we've kind of reverse engineered search and kind of have a good idea. It's why SEO is a thriving area in media. um, so the idea that you've removed all this friction, you're now trusting these sources kind of inherently, also brings up like how is the AI picking these sources? Thinking about those business relationships the platform has, how much do they matter to the results? I don't think we've answered that question yet either, even though Perplexity, which is a popular AI search tool, has said the business relationships don't matter. They probably shouldn't matter, but I'm not sure how you would measure that to make sure.
So I want to talk plagiarism. Two final questions. Get on to my plagiarism question. How my AI changed the way we think about uniqueness, content uniqueness.
Yeah, yeah, it's a fair question. So there's a there's a era of AI, like early on when AI was fairly new, uh, and I'm talking about the current generation of AI, so ChatGPT and chatbots and LLMs. So the plagiarism of AIs of the content they're giving is a solvable problem in my view. So if you're asking AI for something, information on something, they're getting less plagiarisy, and that's, I think eventually that problem will shrink to be negligible. Now, the other plagiarism problem with AI is that humans use it, and then they'll essentially use the AI's answer as their own. Um, I'm not going to go as far as to say that's a feature, not a bug. It is a problem, particularly if you're not doing fact checking. Then it becomes a serious problem because these systems inevitably hallucinate. It seems that they probably hallucinate way more than the their creators would have us think. Um, but if you do use AI again in a disciplined way, in a way where you are fact checking and you're not having it write for you, but it's more of a like a writing co-pilot, I don't know if that's really a bad thing. So is that plagiarism? Probably not. Arguably, just copying and pasting an AI's output isn't plagiarism either. That's just lazy. So using original, quote unquote, original AI content seems like that's a feature, but I think there's some pretty clear best practices that have emerged so that, you shouldn't be doing it without sort of a proper process attached. In short, you just got to approach AI with the right mindset. You shouldn't approach it with like, this is going to do my work for me, that this is a partner, this is a co-pilot, this is a thing I work with. I don't just sort of kick my feet up and let it do its thing.
But one more final question that I have, and then get to some bonus to wrap up real quickly. How can AI tools be integrated to the management systems? When we talk about using it as a partner, and one of the things I heard, the best way to look at it, you said it here, and Gary Vaynerchuk says it best: use AI as a thinking buddy, as as a partner. If you're relying on it for the whole thing, it's not going to be your input at all. It's going to be you're asking a question to allow. But I often do like ask for lists when I give me 20 possible things, and I'll choose from out of a list, and then I can use my own insights to talk about three or five of those in like a piece of content or something. So my question is, how can these AI tools be integrated into content management systems to streamline the creation process?
Yeah, so certainly, that's the dream, right? You want the AI to be built into the platforms that you're already using, but you also want it to be quality. And here's sort of the conundrum of this today, which is that it's certainly possible to put AI in all kinds of platforms, from content management systems to social networks to Slack to everything you might be using day to day for your productivity. The problem is those tools are always going to be a generation behind, if not more, than the stuff that's coming out of the frontier models. When you build a tool, you're using something that's vetted, that's tested, that is, you attach processes to and comfortably put APIs around. That takes time. So if OpenAI comes out with something better that is publicly available, you're probably going to take a few months to figure that out. So all these tools, you'll see it in whatever app you're using, whether it's LinkedIn or Slack or what have you. You're going to find, why is this so sucky? Why is this not as good as the AI stuff I'm getting out of ChatGPT or Claude or whatever? And I'm afraid that gap is always probably going to be there. And I think the key is people need to sort of stop chasing the flashy new thing, at least in terms of an experience, and ask themselves, is the tool I'm using for this task good enough? Or, does doing something manually, copying and pasting from my CMS or my Google Doc or whatever, is that going to give me something better for this project in the short term that makes that manual process worth it? I think by and large, no. Depends on the project, but I also think humans are kind of perfectionists, particularly content creators. So I think you need sort of a bit of ruthless kind of skepticism as to what you really need when you look at these processes. And I also would say, don't shy away from building tools into all these applications, because you can always sub out a new tool. And that is going to mean, yes, you're going to need to fine tune it again. You're going to need to test it again, because even if it's just an evolution of the pre-existing tool, those responses are going to look different if you're using something like, say, GPT 4.0 Mini instead of GPT 3.5, which was a big transition. We're probably still in the middle of, come to think of it, because when OpenAI came out with GPT 4.0 Mini, it was very cheap. It was based on the 4.0 model, which is their latest and greatest sort of consumer model, and everyone wanted to go to it. But I'm sure everyone who had templated nice prompts and all the good stuff for GPT 3.5 found they were getting new, different things from 4.0 Mini. Even if it's like technically better in terms of the copy, it's like if you're not getting something as predictable or consistent, that's going to be problematic for your process. So yeah, there's always going to be that kind of delay, and there's always going to be, I think, a certain amount of discipline. You got to have to look at that process of like, do I need amazing copy for my SEO headlines? Probably not. You could probably use a smaller model. You could probably pay a little less attention to what the output is, as long as it's not wrong. So like that's sort of how I would approach that. But yeah, certainly like stuff's getting built into a whole bunch of systems left and right. And I think the question is, can you can your tech teams keep up? Luckily, AI is sort of this very cool natural language, for the most part, technology that is now more accessible to more people because of the nature of it. You don't necessarily need engineering coding to make it work, which is very cool.
So, and I want to respect your time. I maybe one final thing I want to touch about, like a metric or something. But is there something that we left out or forgot about that you need to cover?
So you mentioned metrics. I mean, I think whenever you're applying AI, you need to look at the metric of that you're trying to achieve. Are you trying to, get more traffic? Are you trying to get more conversions to, could be subscribing to a newsletter, or people transacting? So if you, a lot of people, especially content creators now, individuals do affiliate marketing, right? And you monetize through links, even on places like TikTok. You if you is that your measure? And if it is, and AI is improving it, then great. Why wouldn't you use AI? And there's probably some some ethical questions we probably didn't touch on. I think we mentioned a little bit in terms of like images, and if you use someone's image, or if you use AI images, what does that do to sort of the
Or someone's
image
likeness,
industry? Yeah, someone's likeness. There's ethical issues there, but
permission,
uh,
get their permission.
yeah, and to me, the ultimate metric for me is time. Is AI saving me time? Because time is, again, I'm an entrepreneur, so it's extremely valuable to me what I spend my time on. But for everybody who's working a job in journalism and marketing and PR, there's no doubt parts of your job you hate, that I can't stand doing this. Like when I was leading newsrooms, almost never encountered a reporter that loved doing social copy for for their articles. Right? They would just whatever, they just use the deck or the summary or whatever and toss it up, unless it was something they were like really proud of. So if you can get a robot to write all that for you, that's huge. And again, you're just getting all that sort of cognition back that you can sort of spend making better stories and more of them. So that should be your measure.
Use it to help generate, but don't die on that hill. Like, edit it and use it as like a template or a guide, and add some of your flavor into it as well.
Yeah, and I think that the whole thing is like have a good attitude going into it. Journalists are skeptical of new things. They're skeptical of big technology. Certainly skeptical of AI, because there does seem to be this existential component attached to it. And it's not there. It's not, it just seems there kind of is. But again, come at it with the attitude that this can work for me. I just need to figure it out. And if you come in with that attitude, you're going to find that you'll find something for it to do, and then you're going to refine that, and you're going to find other things to do, and you'll before you know it, AI is going to be part of your workflow. Again, if you need guidance on that, I have a very affordable, and if you reach out to me, uh, we can work something out if you can't afford it. AI class All you have to go to mediacopilot.ai and check out the classes there. There's even a little chat bot that you can talk to if you don't like clicking around and register in it. There's also a 3-hour class I offer, which gives you a lot of advanced tools. That's again, this is for journalists, PR people, marketers, but actually, I've actually found some weird professions get something out of it too. Not weird, but just I guess unexpected professions. Like had some realtors take the class; they got a lot out of it. I mean, yeah, because everyone creates content, right? Whether it's realtors love doing things on TikTok and shoving off stuff, and realtors like to do
Because that
lots of content. So it's kind of a universal thing. So if your profession involves content and just working more efficiently, I think I've got something to offer you.
Yeah, everyone has, or most people, not say everyone, but most people have a phone. A lot of people have a phone, and we're in what day is it? Creator economy.
Yeah, it's totally a creator economy. Yeah. Everyone's got a phone,
So,
everyone's got a Substack, everyone's got a TikTok. You got some mine's on
mhm,
Substack, that's my newsletter. You can also get that
Substack.
to that. Yeah, it's easy again, just go to mediacopilot.ai, you
Yeah.
can subscribe to the newsletter there. And yeah, hopefully we can help you out and get you on your AI journey.
Well, thanks. You were jumping ahead one step away. I was the next thing I was going to ask is how can we support you? How like best? And you listed your website, Substack. Is that the best way?
Yeah,
Or
so again, the classes, if you can afford them, great. I'd love to offer them to you, but the best way you can support is subscribing to the newsletter, which is, yeah, just go to mediacopilot.ai. You'll find a place to subscribe to the newsletter. It's on Substack. You can search for me on Substack, Pete Pachal, or Media Copilot. Again, there's a free subscription for the newsletter. It gets you my Thursday newsletter. It gets you the podcast. So my podcast also called the Media Copilot. So you can find me at all those places. Yeah, and I offer a paid subscription to the newsletter as well if you need or desire more practical advice and tips on how to use AI in very specific work. We have a lot of how-to articles that we're building up, and a paid subscription to the newsletter will get you access to those.
so I want to bonus questions that you haven't seen yet. I want to wrap up this great. Thanks for acknowledge you for coming on today, talking a little bit about AI. AI is a huge subject, and we can probably talk hours and hours on AI. We go on, but we only have so much time in the day. But I want to wrap up with three bonus questions.
Okay.
How can businesses and individuals work together, and AI, include AI in this, to ensure that new technologies are developed and deployed in a responsible and sustainable way that benefits society as a whole?
Ooh, that's a big one. That's the first question. I need
Just
another
your
hour to
take.
answer that one.
Then
Well, to do it
not just
responsibly no, I'll do um, the
there's no
quickest
right or
answer I
wrong.
can. Yeah, I think be active in the discussion, talk about what you're seeing, what you're feeling, put it out on social media, talk to your lawmakers and your representatives if you want to. Develop your own AI ethics, I'm not here to judge what you do or what you don't do with AI. I mean, assuming you're not doing something really lousy, which is to say, some of the stuff they've done with deepfakes and porn is pretty bad. Happy to judge that, but I don't think that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about, day to day use of AI. Is it okay? What's the ethical way? Do your research, check it out. If you feel sort of weird and uneasy about something, maybe there's something to it, and I guarantee you,
Mm,
someone's written about it. Just look around, like I sort of alluded to earlier, using images, AI images there's a weird aspect to it because you probably would have bought or got a stock image. And well, is that someone's livelihood attached to that that's being transformed in a big way? Is the industry trying to adapt to deal with that? And, you'll find that they are. There's a lot of talk today about copyright, about licensing the stuff you put into these models, and with those licenses, paying creators for use in AI and allowing them to opt out. And not all services the same, right? Like what one particular company does with that respect might be different from another, and that might guide your decision on how to use it. So just keep checking it out. Keep looking at what these companies do.
all right, great answer. Thank you for that, and for indulging me on that question. What are three? Get into some lessons. Three lessons, or a lesson, if you have up to three, that we should all learn in handling these powerful tools. responsibly and mindfully.
3 lessons for handling the tools. They probably do more than you think. In fact, I guarantee they do. Everyone goes to OpenAI and is like, or ChatGPT, it's going to write some stuff for me. It can do so much more than that. You throw it some data, you ask it to
Mhm.
code a site, uh, it'll do it. And only from a few prompts. It's really impressive. Like push this thing to the limit. And really, it's kind of like when we all, after a while, realized if you don't know how to do something, just Google it, and you probably find a YouTube video or something that shows you how to do it. Now everyone just kind of does that and knows that.
Mhm.
Now ChatGPT is sort of applying that to almost, um, I guess, a wider set of things you can do in the digital space. That sounds kind of boring, but basically, ChatGPT can not just show you how to do it, but maybe even do it for you. Not all the time, and it might take you a couple prompts to get there. So that's number one. Um,
That's the key you said there. Couple prompts, couple tries.
yeah, you got to
So,
iterate. I guess that might be my second
yeah,
lesson. Iterate. If what comes out doesn't quite match what you wanted, you probably just need to nudge it a little bit. You probably just need to, oh no, wait, you
doesn't
forgot
feel
one
right.
thing. Yeah,
It
you
doesn't feel
know,
right.
didn't get the word count right. Doesn't mean it wasn't paying attention. Maybe it does, but you could get it to pay attention with another prompt. So iterate on these things. Work with them like you would a human. Like humans mishear you sometimes. Humans misinterpret. Humans miss deadlines and have excuses.
Mhm.
And again, you would be sympathetic to a human. Be a little sympathetic to the chatbot that has no experience with the real world. So that's another one. And I guess lastly, I would say simultaneously do your best to keep up with what AI is doing, but I would say narrow your focus. Because if you try to keep up with all of the AI news in any given month, week, or day, it is a fire hose. It is like the most intense news filled fire hose. So I would say pick something, pick the thing you like. Maybe it's just text to video, for example. So those services that you can, like, Sora and Hedra. There's a bunch of services like this. Kling AI out of China. They all like you give a prompt, show me a Ferrari driving on the top of a balloon and diving into Batman's Batcave, something like that. And it creates a video that shows exactly that. Um, just narrow your focus to that. If that's what you're interested in, like try to keep up with that. Try those tools because if you try to keep up with everything and all the tools that do all the things, trust me, I've tried to do this. It's impossible. You will never, ever, ever sleep. So give yourself license to stay in a lane and keep up with that lane. And then, yeah, then you have a lot to actually to teach others because everyone else is trying to figure this stuff out too. And you might want to start a Substack.
Yeah, thanks. Go do the thing. Go. Just acknowledge you for making some time today and getting pre-interview, and we scheduled this for talk today. I have one final question,
Go for it.
and I can let you go. What is your definition of innovation?
My definition of innovation would be doing something that either hasn't been done before or um, applying it to in a way that hasn't been done before. And honestly, like if you look at something like uh, Apple, which is a very great company, by the first definition of innovation, which is not something that hasn't been done before, they don't really do that. Apple typically is like the third or the fourth person to do a thing. If you look at MP3 players, if you look at tablets, if you look at even the smartphones, but they put it together in an incredibly novel way that is very much their own and has their signature design, quality control, and sort of attention to the audience that is just their thing. And that's innovation. That counts. Like if it doesn't matter how many people did smartphones before the iPhone. The iPhone did it in such a incredible and innovative way. So just use innovation to define innovation, but in a way that we hadn't really seen before with multi-touch and all these other technologies. So it was really, really smart. So I think that's what it is. On a lower scale, I think individuals can do innovation. I think there's a term that we use in journalism a lot, and it's called like scoop of insight, which is to say I don't have new information about this particular topic. I don't have a source telling me something exclusive, but I've actually sort of thought about all the angles around this story, combine it with my experience and expertise, and come out with something that is probably either someone's never stated before or hasn't stated in this way before. And honestly, largely that is what most of content is on the internet, right? Like these are the people doing like real hardcore journalism and getting brand new facts and ideas out there that are exclusive to them. That is a very, very select few. Um, so yeah, so that's innovative if you can do that. It's I would say what I described there in terms of scoops of insight is a it's not it's the opposite of aggregation. You know, it sort of seems like aggregating on some level because you are sort of taking information from elsewhere, but the core of it is you. The core of it is your insight. Doesn't really matter where you're getting it from. You've kind of figured out this sort of thing that takes it to the next level. And I think the more we sort of think about that, the more we're using that human cognition in the right way. We're actually like, I'm using my brain to apply it to this thing to come up with something novel. I'm not just doing sort of robotic tasks. And that's how we can all sort of innovate as individuals.
Yeah, but one my first guest I had on it when I started talking about film, and he said it towards the end when I was asking these questions, kind of to him these three lessons, and he came up with stand on the shoulders of the giants who came before you, but also
Totally.
do something like innovate, like do something new as well. Don't just
Yeah, give it your flavor.
stand,
Give it your
yeah,
personal flavor. You got a
your
flavor to
flavor.
you. Don't be
Wi-
don't be scared. And if you if and the thing is we all know this, right? The thing is, and this is the hard work of doing being a content creator, to be honest with you, is when you sort of have your own deadline and you want to put something out and you know you phoned it in and you know you haven't added that thing that we were just talking about. You feel bad. You know it. And you might put it out anyway, but I think most content creators that are worth following will really push themselves. Like, what am I bringing here? And like, if they need to, they'll tear it up and just start again, or at least tear up parts of it until they kind of like have something. Um, and if you're putting out just stuff, that doesn't have that, I don't think you're going to last very long. At least not anymore. Not with the AI economy and the AI information ecosystem, because bots are going to tell. Bots are going to be able to tell you haven't brought anything to the table, and they're not going to put you in their engines. That's just the reality. I hope
Okay,
that's an
thanks.
optimistic note. It's kind of a fearful note I ended on there, but I'm trying to be optimistic and say, if you have that thing, keep working at it. You can put it in your content, and you will survive, and perhaps even thrive in the AI era. There you go. I
Just
flipped it.
lead with value, and you'll be fine. Value is the new currency.
Exactly. Exactly. Couldn't have said it better myself.
That's not for me. It's I follow Lewis Howes and Sean Cannon, who I was just in a current challenge with, and they're all about value, and that's where I'm coming from too. I'm a video editor, video content creator, and lead with value.
Cool. Well, thanks for all the value you
I
brought
want
here,
to
Tommy. It's been a really
I
great
want to
conversation.
acknowledge your time you spent with me today, talking this great conversation that we had in under an hour.
Yeah,
We talked a lot about a lot of stuff in under an hour.
nailed
Great
it.
conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Tommy. All right. Take care, and hope to talk to you again.
We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. It's always a blast exploring the tech universe with you. But alas, it's time to wrap things up. If you've got burning tech questions or just want to say hello, remember you can reach out to us on our website, social media, or drop us an email. We love hearing from you. And if you found this episode as electrifying as we did, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback helps us keep the tech goodness flowing. Don't forget to share Tech Time with Sweet Tea with your fellow techies. The more, the merrier, right? As we sign off today, always remember that tech is a tool and it's here to serve you. So use it wisely, explore fearlessly, and keep it real in your tech adventures. Stay curious, stay connected, and keep rocking the digital world. Catch you on the next episode of Tech Time with Sweet Tea.